keep in mind that they might edit my videos, they might change what is being said. They have proven they have the technology to do so a million times over, so to speak. So let's talk about this Jesus argument and my journey to the conclusion that it is superimposed on the idea of me. Alright, so first of all, let us consider what I believed when I was younger. I basically believed my whole life when I was younger, leading up to maybe the last 10 years or so, whenever the belief seems to have slightly shifted, but listen carefully, you'll see what I mean, that Jesus was a person who was dark-skinned and sort of Semitic looking, sort of looked like me with a kind of Semite kind of emphasis, okay? And he was skinny, may have been tall, but one thing's for sure, he was a dark-skinned mixed person. Earlier on my videos, for example, I used to say semi means part or half, right? He's half what? So eventually the argument that he's part black emerges. When I was really young, okay, you know, and there was times when I had a lot going on in my life, so I wasn't exactly talking about this stuff all the time. And I used to say things when I was young like, Jesus, that I did believe Jesus died on the cross, and if not, that something important like that occurred, right? That somewhere in history, people died for what they believe, and it's kind of symbolic of that, okay? And it was at times when I would just try to kind of please people and say what I, believed at the same time, and kind of just quickly say, well, I believed he died, because that's what people want to hear, and they kind of harass you about it. So my view was basically, I didn't know for sure if Jesus died on the cross or came back to life, but I believed that, the message was obey God even if it kills you, and that's what was important. So I said Jesus died on the cross, and I said, but it doesn't matter, because God's message was obey him even if it kills you. And I said I did not believe that you need Jesus as a mediator at the time, right, as an intermediary, that you don't need to say in Jesus' name, and I don't think it's right to pray to Jesus, you pray to God. So my view was distinctly different from other people. Didn't believe Jesus is equal to God. Before I had the scriptures, I said he's his son. God sent his son into the world, right? He didn't send himself. It's right there in their own propaganda. He sent his only begotten son. He didn't come in himself, okay? Many scriptures would vindicate me on that point. So now let's look at the reality of the situation, okay? Well, what the logic suggests after a thorough analysis for years, the conclusion is the churches are trying to use, confuse, and abuse, and that the idea is actually an idea of African martial art heroes, okay, that died in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. We also see Egyptians kind of twist the idea. We see short guys who are kind of skinny and feeble, kind of gayish looking, kind of gay guy at the beach kind of body, okay, depicted as Horus, which is another idea that is superimposed on Jesus. Now pay attention very carefully. The idea of a falcon martial artist, okay, because falcon is the fastest animal. It's similar to the idea of an angel, for example. It flies, flies high, has good vision. It's, it flies at 242 miles an hour when it dives, when it attacks. When it's attacking, it is the fastest animal, okay? It is said to fly close to the sun, and so on and so forth. So we look at it in terms of someone who's kind of almost a natural scientist, but not in the Western conception of it. Just somebody trying to, put things together and use logic to connect them, right? The natural pinnacle of humanity is the martial arts. That's why in the Bible itself it says the Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name, Horus is a god of war, and on and on. Zeus is a deity of war of sorts, right? He's lightning, and he punishes gods, and he wages war in his own way, and so on and so forth. So this is a recurring theme. It's like a consensus that the great warrior is the ideal man, and the great warrior who's otherworldly, right, transcendent, he's divine, that he is the ideal man. Obviously, not even for a moment, even as a kid, did I believe Bruce Lee was the top martial artist ever in terms of hand-to-hand combat. Instead of fighting, he might very well be very good. But if he picked up a sword or something, picked up a spear and took on an African warrior, I said, you got to be fucking kidding me, okay? You know, I mean, most people probably saw it that way. They said, nunchucks, cool, okay. But you take on somebody who comes from thousands and thousands of years of war, hand-to-hand combat, it's not the same as taking on some goofy American thug in the back alleyway or something, okay? So the general belief, and I believe my classmates basically saw it the same way, is over the years, people who do martial arts and hand-to-hand combat weren't as good as their ancient counterparts. However, that is not the same when it comes to me specifically, okay? Because it has to do with continuity and natural prowess and evolution and being high-bred, okay, with no ill-gotten gains versus, you know, being a kind of American guy. Hi guys, I come from a long line of musketeers and knights and so on and so forth on their patriarchal line and so on and so forth. Okay, and we simply don't see people who are mixed black and white, who have a white father with the same physical prowess and really martial mental prowess as somebody with a warrior African father. Okay, so, you know, I did not believe Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris was the top warrior / martial artist ever when it comes to, you know, it's kind of semantics, when it comes to weapons-based combat, when it comes to character. These are kind of Johnny Cage movie stars. They are not the best at one-on-one combat, and nor are they have the most character. I don't think any of my Asian friends or acquaintances at the time would have had a problem with that argument. Okay? They would have argued that martial arts works to a certain degree, fine. But they almost certainly, when I was younger, in my personal experience, I don't know about other people, wouldn't have argued that Bruce Lee was the top martial artist. And especially as you see people get older, they think that Tyson could beat him in a fight. You know, a lot of people think that. A lot of people are groupies, kind of ethnocentrics, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of racism going on and ethnic pride and tribalism going on these days. Okay? So, again, I did not believe that a white-looking guy, died on the cross and literally came back to life to forgive me for my sins. I did not believe that it was necessary for God to send his son to die on the cross, okay, to forgive me for my sins. I believe that the message was that quit being a bitch, pick up your cross, and do what is morally precise, right? Do what is morally precise and die a hero who's right with God. That is the point of life. That in life, if you start telling the truth, people give you a hard time. If you're a Christian in a Muslim African country or something that's in a civil war, people give you a hard time, kind of thing. This sort of thing. Not, you know, be a fair weather Klansman or American Christian who's shallow, right? You know, kind of Johnny Bravo, kind of Bugs Bunny, Shaggy Doo, Fred Flintstone, you know, Prince Humperdinck, you know, kind of fake guy, fake Superman fakeness, Princess Bride fakeness, you know, Three Musketeers. I did not believe these people were chosen by God. And I believed that the Jews rejected Jesus. That's why they were Jews. And any Jew that was a Christian was just another Christian. I did not believe they had a special place in the church. Okay? And no one ever said to me, the priests have to be Jews before the priests. Nothing like that was ever said. Even to this day, it hasn't been said publicly, but there's something like that going on behind the scenes, perhaps. We'll say. All right. So you see how my argument of Christianity is not based on dreams or visions or things like this. You know, when I say vision, if I ever said it, it has to do with seeing things a certain way. Okay, it's like, you know, you say, hey, did you see that? Okay, do you see that that guy will kick that guy's ass? I see it that way too. It has to do with these kind of things. Right, I have a deeper vision for life. It's what I see in a deeper, logical way, right? Consciousness, okay? And I don't believe in hallucinating or having dreams from God and being shown these things. I think dreams have to do with the unconscious mind, and they can show you things like nature can, but there's no dream right from God saying, do this. So I didn't quite believe the Bible when I was younger. I used to say things like, who wrote the Bible? Why is it still around? Okay? Why would these people who killed Christians allow their Bible to survive? Okay? Why didn't Jesus write in the Bible? And so on and so forth. So my view has pretty much been the same, except for there was a bit of confusion on what happened with Jesus on the cross, right? Was there a guy named Jesus? Did he die on the cross? There was a lot of adults threatening me subtly with eternal punishment if I didn't believe that Jesus died on the cross, and there's a lot of peer pressure to say that he died on the cross. So I'm trying to get people to do the right thing while there's a lot of that stuff going on. I don't quite know what to think, but I believe if it did happen, if it did happen, and that God wanted me to believe it, that I should believe it. So there was some confusion there. Okay, but I knew that people were full of shit. I knew the white society was extremely hypocritical, and they didn't approve of me for being a handsome young man. They didn't approve of me dating their daughters. They were extremely unfair. So I said, how could these people unfair? They enslaved people and killed Native Americans, stole their land, and so on and so forth. How could they be telling the truth about God? Okay, and pretty straightforward. I think most people had somewhat of a similar view, including that Jesus was some kind of dark-skinned person, right? He's in the Middle East. The sun is shining, beaten down hard. Okay, he's from people who were in Egypt, in the Middle East for a long time. What are the odds that he had a white skin when these people are said to have been there from the beginning onward or something, right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? They, after Noah's Ark, right? And I believe that if something like that occurred, I didn't quite believe in Noah's Ark, and certainly when I was in my 20s, I 100% rejected the idea that it was literal. Okay, and I remember saying that when I was 20, 21. On the south side of San Jose, in the apartment complexes I used to live in over there with my girlfriend. And of course, there's all kinds of, kind of what you might say fundamentalists or whatever you would call them that argued that it literally happened. Okay, so we eventually get toward, so I'm running out of time in this video. They limit me to 15 minutes or so. So let's just wrap this up. We eventually get toward, of course, the Nigerian Civil War. I said, my dad is a brain surgeon, came here as a refugee from Nigeria. My uncle was a lawyer at the time. He's my dad's brother. Okay, he graduated from UC Berkeley, and he top of his class at Santa Clara, and so on and so forth. And then, my other uncle was a doctor too. Okay, so my dad's two brothers, the other two people came to America with him eventually. He brought them here. Okay, and he paid for them to come over, and as the story goes, it was very hard on him at the time. He wasn't established. He was in medical school still, or he was just starting his practice, or whenever he did that, he didn't have a lot of money, and he brought them here, and they worked their way up too. So I said, what does this mean in terms of blessings? What does this mean in terms of Igbos taking on the most dangerous African country, okay, on the planet, Nigeria, okay, who fought a war with Cameroon and got them to surrender in 2 days? Okay, what I read when I was younger, if I remember correctly. Okay, got him to surrender in just 2 days. Okay, and these guys fought him for 3 years or so, 67 to 70. Okay, and during that time, Martin Luther King was assassinated, by the way, in 1968. Okay, so, and of course, it just happens to be his tribe that my dad is from. Right, millions of Igbos, as the story goes, came to America, North and South America, Brazil and America, what have you, during the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, which goes back to manifest, right? The ships manifest and manifest destiny. See how these are solid connections. What is the essence of the tribe in the Igbo language? Igbo Obi, King Harhut Essence Center Core. Okay, and Kuro Obi means black belt. Okay, so there's an overwhelming amount of evidence pointing to my family, because then we look at it, do we say, hey, do we choose David who took on Goliath, or do we choose an Igbo who's just trying to shrink to fit, who's controlled opposition, pretending to be David taking on Goliath in some church or something? It's like, I'm a Catholic or a Protestant, and I'm taking on the satanic world in some theater show. No, we look at the top martial artists. It was single combat, the root and offspring of David, which was martial art principles, single combat. And of course, David is superimposed on martial arts single combat. None of us, when we first hear the story, think it's fair that he shot him with a slingshot, okay, or a sling. Okay, it's like shooting someone with a bow and arrow who challenges you to a martial art combat. You see what I'm saying? This guy came with armor, a spear, and a shield. He did not have an arrow or any projectile. So it was symbolic of the Bible, the writers of the Bible trying to cheat the martial art order. They act like single combat in martial arts has no deeper implications on nature and the spirit, the motivating force, the essence, the driving force, the dominating force, the animating principle of someone. So when we work the angles on who is the son of Psalm 89, he anointed a warrior. Okay, he bestowed spiritual strength on David, a warrior. We get those competitions were superimposed on the idea of the Royal African Falcon Top Martial Artist competition. And I've proven that I am the top martial artist ever possible.